right. Hello, everyone. I'm not going to read this whole story to you because it is very long, but we're going to summarize it and then we're going to talk about the endings. That's the most important part. The story is called Was It a Dream? By a French guy whose name I can't pronounce. Sorry. As we read, we're going to talk about the narrator's feelings and how they change. We may also have some side comments about how he was probably more like obsessed rather than in love. That's my opinion. That's just Miss Carney's opinion. Don't write that in your paper. So basically, it starts out with this guy talking about how he had loved this girl so much. Her name is on his lips and in his heart, and it's the only thing that he ever thinks about. It's like water to his soul and food to his spirit and all this stuff. And he's always saying her name over and over and over again, like a religious person might pray. So that's a bit much, but it's okay. It's fine. It's a story. So then he tells us that he's going to tell us his story about how for a year she loved him and he loved her, and they were always together and he was always in her arms, and he loved her so much he didn't care whether it was day or night or whether he was dead or alive or where he was or anything. And she died. So we're in paragraph 4. She died. He doesn't know how she died. It was pouring down rain. She coughed and coughed and coughed and then got in bed, and then doctors came, and then they went, and then she got medicine, and then she drank it, but she still didn't get any better. So maybe it was the coronavirus. Sorry, guys. I shouldn't be making those jokes. Quarantine is getting to me. But the point is, in paragraph 4, the guy's lover died, and nothing could be done about it. Then in paragraph 5, he talks to a priest so that they can arrange the funeral. The priest is kind of mocking her, and he calls her your mistress. So a mistress being a woman having an affair with someone. So we already have a hint that something is not A-okay. And the dude gets real mad. He's like, no, she's dead. You can't talk bad about her. Do not do that. This is not okay. So he gets another priest to do the funeral, who actually is nice, and then he proceeds to cry about it while the priest talks. They asked him what they wanted to do about the funeral in paragraph 6, but he doesn't remember any of it. He's like, whatever. All he can think about is the sound of the hammer when they nailed the coffin shut and buried it. He freaks out that she's buried in the hole. He can't believe that she would be buried in a hole, dead in a coffin. He's like, this is not possible. So then some of the lover's girlfriends come, and he just kind of makes his escape and runs away and walks through the streets and goes home. Then he gets back to Paris, goes up to their place again, their little apartment, and he sees their room, their bed, their furniture, and all he can think of is this girl. Everything reminds him of her. I'm sorry, guys, I can't speak today, apparently. Everything reminds him of her, and he cannot deal with it. He's like, I felt like opening the window and throwing myself out into the street. So, he's just, beyond the ability to deal. He can't. So he decides that he's gonna go back out in the street, and this is he's just deep in grief, because he passes the mirror that she used to look into every day before she went out to make sure, she looked okay. And we're in paragraph 9 now. All he can think about is how this mirror must contain her still in some way, because she looked at it every day and he loved her and the mirror held her, so maybe he can still find her in the mirror. And just thinking about her reflection in the mirror causes him to suffer greatly. So in paragraph 10, it starts to get weird. Or, well, weirder. He goes to the cemetery and reads on the cross the inscription, she loved, was loved, and died. So that sounds very pleasant, right? That sounds very sweet. I'm going to annotate this one. We're going to highlight it. This is what people think of her, what the lover thinks of the lady who died. She was faithful, loving. She was a good person. She was faithful and loving. A good person. Oops. Person. Okay, so that's our first little note, because that's what you think of her. So then he proceeds to sit here and cry and sob about how she's gone And then he decides that what he wants to do as the last wish of a lover is to sleep on the grave, because that's not weird or anything. But he would be found and someone would drive him out. So he gets up and he starts walking around the graveyard, and he refers to it as the city of the dead. And he's just sitting here thinking about the number of dead people that there are in this little tiny graveyard, and all of the generations of them, and how they just get taken into the earth and they become part of the earth again. He gets back to the oldest part of the cemetery in paragraph 14, where everything has been dead for a long time. So what he's thinking about is death. All he can think about is death. He's completely alone in paragraph 15. He's waiting and waiting. And when it's completely dark, he leaves and goes back to find the grave. But he's crawling around, bumping into things. He can't find his way, and he cannot find her grave. So we're moving on to paragraph 17. There's no moon, it's dark, he can't find anything, and he's getting terrified. So he's gone from being just grieved and depressed to thinking about dying, and now he's like consumed by fear, alone in the dark in the graves. He hears his heart beating, it's confusing to him. He can't figure out if the noise of his heartbeat is in his head or somewhere else, or what he's hearing. So then he sits down on somebody's grave. Don't know why. Probably to stop and consider his actions. Then we get to paragraph 18, and the slab of marble the grave marble that he's sitting on, starts moving. So he jumps up to look and see what's happening. And the dead person rises out of the grave and reads the inscription on his grave, like the message on the gravestone. Here lies Jacques Olivant, who died at the age of 51. He loved his family, was kind and honorable, and died in the grace of the Lord. So that's another nice, pleasant-sounding message on the gravestone. But then in paragraph 20, the dead man starts scratching out what had been written there and writes what is apparently the truth. Here reposes, that means here lies, Jacques Olivant, who died at the age of 51. He hastened his father's death by unkindness. As he wished to inherit his fortune, he tortured his wife, tormented his children, deceived his neighbors, robbed everyone he could, and died wretched. So basically, everybody lied about him after he died to make it sound better. And he actually is a terrible person. So he stands there looking at what he did, and then the narrator turns around and sees that all of the graves are open, that all of the dead bodies have emerged from them, and that they have all started scratching out what was inscribed, what was written on their tombstones before, and writing down the truth. So he's revealing that everybody is terrible, dishonest, hypocrites, liars, rogues, bad people, basically. They're pointing out every bad thing that these supposedly good fathers, faithful wives, devoted sons, and so on had done. So he starts thinking maybe she, his lover, wrote something on her tombstone, and he wants to see, and he sort of has this kind of fear that he's going to find out something about her. So he runs, sure that he'll find her, and he finds her face, and he gets to the cross which once read, she loved, was loved, and died. And it says, having gone out in the rain one day in order to deceive her lover, she caught cold and died. So the truth is the exact opposite of what was written on her gravestone. She was not honest. She was cheating on him the entire time, and maybe didn't even really love him. We're going to make that little annotation here. And then that's basically the end of the story. So that's a pleasant note for us to end on. The last part that happens is that people find him just unconscious on top of her grave, you know, casually, as you do. But the question is, what is going on here? So this is not what you expect. When you read about this guy who's just gone through all of this depression and struggle over his dead girlfriend, it's a surprise to us to find out that she actually died because she was cheating on him. So as you do your annotations and answer your questions, think about what exactly causes us to be surprised by this ending. Take some time to think about, as we went through the summary, how he changes over the course of the story. He just starts out depressed and full of grief, but it changes. How does it change throughout the story? What kinds of feelings does he have as he goes? So I hope this helps you as you annotate. I will talk to you guys later in the next video.